Hi there, I'm Dr. Elliot Goodine. You might be taking one of my classes at UNC Greensboro or at Guilford Technical Community College, or you might have just stumbled across this video on the internet looking for some advice about how to correctly cite a paper in MLA format. Well, I'm going to walk you through that process step by step with a focus on how to use the MLA format for a philosophy paper. So, giving correct citations is a really important skill. For one thing, it can make sure that you can use anybody's ideas that you want, so long as you correctly cite them. And if you correctly cite your sources, say where you're getting your ideas from, you can never be accused of plagiarism. The other thing is that correctly citing your sources is just a good way to show proper respect for the intellectual labor and energies of the other people who gave you some ideas to help you write your paper. So citing is a really important skill. And moreover, especially if this is your first time writing a paper in MLA format, you might find the whole process a little bit strange. Because when it comes to citing a paper in MLA format, there just seems like a lot of rules. And it can be overwhelming. But I just want to point out, it's a skill that you learn by doing, right? Just like working out math problems or riding a bike, the more you do this kind of thing, the more natural it will become. My brother, for what it's worth, is a surgeon. And one of the things that they do when they're teaching surgeons how to do something in their rotations is first, they're expected to watch somebody else do a procedure. Then they do the procedure with some guidance, they get a little less guidance, and by the end of it, they can even teach the procedure to yet another person. So the idea is that it's a progression from watch one, do one, teach one. So the whole idea in this video is you can watch me going from a completely uncited paper to a paper that's fully cited in MLA format. So just like this watch one, do one, teach one process might work for surgeons, it also works for people getting their citations right on a philosophy paper. So here are just some of the skills that we're going to be running through today. I'm going to teach you how to do in-text citations on quotations, as well as paraphrase and indirect quotations. We'll also take a look at in-text citations for online sources. We'll also learn some details about things like block quotes and using square brackets correctly on your quotations. Then we're also going to work on learning the skills you need for building a works cited section. So we're going to learn how to cite books, works in anthologies, journal articles, online sources, and we're even going to learn how to cite a film. And then within that, we're also going to look at some formatting skills. So both the basics of formatting the paper in general, and you'll also learn the important skill of using a hanging indent on your works cited page. You can watch me do the work, you'll be able to do it yourself, and who knows, maybe someday you'll even be showing somebody else how to get a paper into MLA format correctly. So we're going to work through the entire process. And just keep in mind, don't sweat it too much. There's a lot going on, but I'm going to show you how to solve a whole bunch of different types of problems. And I'm also going to show you the sorts of procedures that you're going to use to get the answers to hard questions that might emerge in the specifics of citing your own paper. But I'll repeat, don't sweat it too much, because you're not going to ruin your grade, at least not in my class, by having a misplaced comma or not having your citations completely perfect. I will expect you to get the basics, but it's certainly more a matter of just getting the general outlines right. So we're going to dive in, and we're going to work through a philosophy paper, top to bottom, getting it into MLA format. So let's get to work. So I've got this paper in Google Docs. That's a word processor that I use all the time. And it's one that you'll be able to access, and there's a good chance that you probably are already using it. So, this paper that I've written is not a good philosophy paper. It doesn't really have a thesis. It just says that philosophy is a rich tapestry, and that's either not much of a thesis at all, or at least it's not a very interesting one. But what we're going to do is we're going to get all of this text out of this format of basically having no format at all, and getting it into the correct MLA format, which is what I'm asking you for your term papers. So first step, we are going to get this formatted in its basics correctly. So one thing that you're supposed to do with your formatting is you want to have the paper set up in a way that it's sort of standardized. So one thing that I usually ask you guys to do on your papers is to get it into 12-point font, but in Times New Roman. So Arial's a much bigger font, but there it is in Times New Roman. Now the other thing that you need to do to get your paper looking right is to double space it. So if you go to line spacing here and move it to double, it's already looking a bit more like a proper academic paper. So good. The other thing that you want to do is get the right information in at the top of your paper. So you're going to put in your name. So we're just going to put in Steve Sample here. You're going to put in your professor's name. So we'll just imagine that he's handing this paper into me. And you're going to put the class that you're in. So it depends on, which class you're in. I'm going to give it a hypothetical name, Philosophy 222, which is not a class that I'm teaching this semester, but, I'm going to have this video out to several different classes. And then last, you're going to put in the date. So that's going to be, let's say that it's due the same day as my 331 paper, which is April 24th. So don't put in the day that you wrote it or the day that you handed it in. Put the due date for the paper on it. Okay, and then you're going to need a title. So we're going to move down one, and your title should be centered. So titles don't have to be fancy. You can basically just give a title that sort of tells what you're talking about. It's okay if you come up with something clever, but don't feel the pressure like you have to. Okay. So that's going to be like the basic formatting. Make sure that your margins are 1 inch, and you can adjust your margins by moving things back in this way, right? So you can get your margins there, but what I'm going to be looking for is that your margins are at 1 inch. So you can see that at 1.0 there, and then everything else is in line. So that's right. And you should have a 1 inch margin on this side as well. The other thing that you can do is you can add your header and a page number. So to get at the header, you can basically just go right at the top of the page. The header goes on the right side. You need to make sure that your fonts match. And then, depending on your word processor, you can have them put in the page numbers automatically. So we're going to put it in the header. We're going to start at 1. We're going to apply. And there we go. So now we've got the header that we need. So that's the basic formatting. Now, the next step is we need to make sure that everything that we cite in the paper actually gets a proper citation. So what we want to do is we need to make sure that our in-text citations are right. So an in-text citation is the stuff where we're making a citation right here within the body of your essay. So far we've got this first one here. In Apology by Plato, Socrates claims the unexamined life is not worth living. So that is off to a good start, but what we are missing is the page number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the textbook and find the spot where Socrates tells us that the unexamined life is not worth living. That is on page 54. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a 54 right here. Now, if you get any questions that come up about exactly what your citations should look like as you work your way through this project, you should go to the Purdue OWL website, the online writing lab. This website is awesome, and it gives you a bunch of helpful advice. So, for instance, if we look in the menu here of MLA style, you can also find information on how to get your in-text citations right. So for instance, it shows that this is what a standard in-text citation will look like in MLA. So we have the sentence, we can see who the author is, and then it gives us a page number. Now I can see that I made one small mistake there, so let's fix that up. And it's that with in-text citations, you want to go quotation, close your quote, make a space, and then put the page number in brackets. Don't put P period 54, you just have to put 54, and then period. Good. So then that's our first citation. So what I'm also going to do is I'm also going to start working on a rough draft of our works cited section. So one thing that you can do is if you go to the very end of your essay, in the last paragraph, you can go Command Enter, and that'll start you on a new page. So then we can start this section called Works Cited. And we can just make a note of the first thing that we need to get a proper citation of. Okay, so now that we've got our first thing listed in our works cited entry, we can just keep working our way through the paper. There's different ways you can cite different sources. So I highlighted for myself just so I could see all of the things that I needed to cite. So we've got the in-text citation for Apology, right? So I'm going to fix the color up there. And then here, instead of quoting something, we're just referring to a philosophical idea. So in this case, we're referring to the idea of hedonism, and then I've given a definition of hedonism which is the view that a life is made better by increases in pleasure. So we're going to go to the textbook that has that claim. So that's our Living Ethics textbook. And I'm going to find the page where Schaefer-Landau made that claim, which is on page 46. So in this case, we're citing somebody in particular, and remember, Schaefer-Landau isn't saying anything about self-examination, so I'm going to put the citation right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put Schaefer-Landau 46. And I almost made a mistake there. Now for some citation formats, you put a comma between the author name and the page number. You don't need to do that for MLA. And when it comes to these sorts of fine-grained detail questions about like whether you need a comma, you can always just have a look at the Purdue website because they do just like such a lovely job of laying out what you need to know, right? But you can see in this example here of an in-text citation, you don't need to put a comma into your citation. But, this is a case where we're just quoting an idea from Schaefer-Landau. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put in his name and the page. So then that's going to be the next thing that we're going to need to put into our works cited at the end. Now, I'm not going to worry about alphabetization yet, but we will get there. Because right now we're just making a list of authors that we need to cite in our essay. So now we've got Peter Singer and his essay, Famine, Affluence, and Morality. So we're going to work our way through and get all the names listed. But again, we just want to make sure that we have the correct... So I'm going to turn these black as soon as I finish making sure that I've listed them. Now again, what I need to do here is I just need to make sure that there is a correct citation of this claim that I've attributed to Singer, the claim that it's morally equivalent to rescue a drowning child from a small pond, even if it will ruin your shoes. So in this case, I have a PDF of that paper. It's right here. And I'm just going to look at the paper. And I remember that he draws the analogy between the drowning child case and ruining a pair of shoes right here. So we just look at that, and that's page 679, right? So we're going to go back to the paper and put in 679. Okay, so we've got that done for Singer. So here we have a quotation instead of a paraphrase, right? So in this case, we just need to figure out exactly where it is, and I've already cited that. So that one I did ahead of time. So that one's page 207. But it means that if your reader wants to see that paper by Timmerman, they can go here and see that on page 207, the thing that I quoted him on is right here in this paragraph. So, good. So, that's good for Timmerman. Let's make sure that we have that citation correctly placed in our works cited list. And I'm not worrying about I'm not yet worrying about alphabetization or formatting yet. Okay, now here's an instance of something called an indirect quotation. So we've got this claim that the mind is entirely indivisible, excuse me, and this is a claim that Descartes made. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the textbook. Yes, so I find the quotation here on page 213. You know, when you're writing your papers, don't waste your time like I just did. You should, put your page numbers in as you're writing or as you're making notes, so you don't have to follow back. So Descartes claims that the mind is entirely indivisible. But what's going on in this claim is I am getting this quotation out of this textbook, right? You might know that with the Philosophy Here and Now book, what happens is you get these chunks of text that are excerpted. So in these cases, it's not actually Descartes himself, the text that we're citing. It's actually just a long quotation of Descartes within Vaughan's book. So what we're going to do is we're going to write quoted in, QTD period in, and then I'm going to hit Command Z so that that automatic capitalization doesn't come through for me, and then it's in the Vaughan textbook. So you'll be able to see that one of the things that you find here is for quoting, for doing an indirect quote. An example we can find is right here. So this is just like another MLA guide that we can find online. But you're going to do QTD period in, and then you give the original source. So like this is an example right here where we go QTD in, and then name page number again. So for us, it's going to be QTD period in Vaughan 213. And then our next quotation is from Vaughan himself, right? So to cite Vaughan himself, and in fact, I know for a fact, we say Vaughan claims that split personality cases are cases that count as genuine instances of divisions of the mind. I know that that's on the same page. And remember, we just have to put the page number because it's clear to your reader that Vaughan is the person who I'm citing here. And you don't need to put Descartes into your works cited because this is a list of the books, articles, and websites that you went to. So because the quote from Descartes is in another book that we also just quoted, you can put those two together. But if you're quoting a quotation from another book, you're going to use that QTD in and so forth. Okay, next one. So it says Plato was against democracy. So this time we've got the Republic. So we've got a second work by Plato. I'm going to copy that again. I'm going to put this one beside Plato because I know that those two are going to be working together. And it looks like this time around I've already given a page number. And it looks like this time I'm using the book Political Philosophy by Stephen Kahn. I'll just quickly double check to make sure I'm using the correct source. Yeah, there it is. So the quote says, the rulers carry themselves like subjects and the subjects carry themselves like rulers. That's right. So I want to make sure I get my period on the right side of things again. you don't have to worry too much about getting the periods in the exact right places. It's not like it's going to make a huge difference to your paper, but it's nice to follow these procedures when you can. So good. So we've got Plato's Republic. It looks like we've just got 2 more in-text citations. So we've got, and this time, and we're going to see in a moment, that this one is by the philosopher C.L.R. James, and this is a web source. So we're going to get James on the list here. Good. And then our last thing that we're citing is a movie. So you can see I say here, it's a documentary. The title of the documentary, I've actually got a copy of it right here. It's called What is Democracy? So because I point to something that this documentary claims and an example from it of a worker-owned clothing factory, that's all I need to do for my in-text citations. Now another thing that we need to do for formatting is we need to make sure that our quotations are correct in their formatting. So the idea is, if your quotation is longer than 4 lines, what you need to do is make a block quote. So that's actually the case with this Timmerman quote right here. So it's more than 4 quotes, so you're going to set it apart from the paragraph. So in order to split that paragraph up, I'm just hitting the Enter key, right? And then because we've got a block quote, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to highlight the whole quote. So this is somebody else's words, right? And the rule is that you're going to take that 1/2 inch inwards. So if you have this whole bar here, right, you're going to slide that over to the 1/2 inch measure. And that's going to give you a block quote. You're going to remove quotation marks. So once you take a big chunk of text and you slide it over 1/2 inch by highlighting it and moving this little tab over, then you're also going to get rid of quotation marks. Now another thing that I've done here is, because Timmerman is using some specialized language in his essay to make it more readable, because what he's done is he's given names to particular thought experiments. So instead of saying drowning child here, what I've done is I've changed it to square bracket thought experiment. So I can do that here too. So the idea is, if you're changing the words in a quotation that you're making, you can use square brackets, right? So thought experiment, Singer's thought experiment. I've also changed a capital letter to a lowercase letter at the front of the quotation. So what we're doing there is we're just changing a word in the quotation, but when you do change a word in the quotation, you just need to use a square bracket so that your reader knows that this is your change and not the exact words that the other author used. So this quote from C.L.R. James is also a very long one. So again, we're going to get it right in line with the rest of the paragraph, right? Then we're going to highlight the words that you're quoting. Those are James's words, right? And what you're going to do, and you see I only got half of the slider there, so you just need to make sure you're floating it correctly so you get the slider and the arrow. I'm going to show you another trick with that in a little while. So now we've got this in line. And what's kind of interesting about this source is off the internet. So it's this essay right here. Every cook can govern. What's going on here is it's an essay that's on a website, Marxists.org. So when you're quoting something off of the internet, you don't have to give a page number or a paragraph number. That's not what MLA requires of you. So again, you can just double check these things on online sources, but it actually has a little entry that talks about what happens when there's no page numbers. Well, it says when you quote from an electronic source, you don't give page numbers, you don't give paragraph numbers, so you're just going to give the name of the author. Now, it's kind of overkill in this case because you already know the name of the author, but I'm just going to put James parenthetically at the end of this, just so my reader knows that I'm citing it. This is one of those fine details of MLA, but in this case, I think just to be safe, I'm going to put his name there. So there's always like a rule for any kind of particular situation that you might find yourself in. We just want to make sure that we have James on the list. Yeah, so we have all of the works that we're citing. So now we can move on to the next step of getting our works cited at the end of the essay correct. Okay, so once we've got our in-text citations correct, so that's all of this stuff in here. We've got page numbers for every claim that we cite, and then we know that we have a list of everything that we need to get properly cited in our works cited. So let's start with a really straightforward one that you're going to be doing a lot, and that's going to be just citing a book. So remember, we use this book, Living Ethics, to make a claim about hedonism. So we're going to open the book up. We crack it open. We are going to get to the title page right here. And this title page is going to have the information that you need. So we're going to make sure that we get the title, the author. You don't need to worry about where Schaefer-Landau works. But then we're also going to need to know the city, the publisher, and then we also need to look at this page to find the publication year, which we see right there is 2019. So that's all the information that we need to get in. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we are adding that information in the correct order. And that's where the Purdue OWL website comes in super handy. We're just going to go to this Works Cited page, Books section. And it's going to give you a basic format. So the format is last name, first name, title of the book, publisher, year. So we can do that for Schaefer-Landau's book, right? So it's Schaefer-Landau, like that's a hyphenated last name. So Schaefer-Landau, Russ. And then we want to put in the whole title of the book. But before we put in the whole title of the book, we want to put book titles in italics. So it's going to be Living Ethics. And then the subtitle, you'll see, is an introduction with readings. So do the whole title. So then we're going to do publisher and year. One is Oxford University Press. And then we've got to flip the page over, like I showed you. Double checking, and this book is 2019. So that's our first entry. Now the other kind of entry that's pretty common to get in a philosophy paper is a work in an anthology. Now, the Schaefer-Landau Living Ethics book is kind of interesting because it has both, the author, Russ Schaefer-Landau, speaking in his own words, but then he also has many page excerpts from other philosophers. So in that case, if you were doing it, then you'd be citing, say, the essay Trying Out One's New Sword by Mary Midgley, which is in this book. You would also put that into your works cited page here. But let's look at this Peter Singer essay. So the first thing that we'll notice is that we need to get this into the right format. So one thing that I see right away is that we want to go last name, first name. And we had that essay in PDF form, right? So that's this one right here. After the author, we're going to have title. So we'll go back there. So the title of the essay. And titles of essays go in quotation marks. Famine, famine, affluence, and morality. Let's see, did they have a second comma in that title? Yes. So just try to get the details as well as you can. And then because I excerpted this from a longer book, I've put all of the information up here. So it's actually a bit of a pain going out from here, but we just need to go in and copy that all down. So the Norton Introduction to Philosophy is the title. And then what you're going to put after that is second ed. Let's just double check that. So again, if in doubt about what information you need to put in, we're going to go to the Purdue OWL website. So again, we're in the books section, and we're going to go to work in an anthology, right? So it's going to go last name, first name, Peter Singer, famine, affluence, and morality, title of collection, and then edited by. And notice that edited by isn't abbreviated or anything like that. So I actually got that wrong. You don't have to memorize this stuff, right? So what we should actually put here is edited by. And then we just need to go back to our source. So I'm going to copy that. And then put those editor names in here. Quick trick, if you go Command, Option, Shift, V, you're going to match a style. So I don't want that word second ed yet. And in that version of the citation, it said blah, 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 editors. Let's just double check that they've got that right. Yeah, so we've got the names of the editors. Then we've just got a little bit more information to put in. So let's see what Purdue OWL is telling us to go for next. Edited by editors' names, publisher, year, page range of entry. So that's actually the last little line that's on here. So I'm just going to copy that. And then we go back to the paper. Now the one thing that I said that we need to make sure that we get back in there. So now we've got Norton 2018 page range. So let's just make sure we're doing that exactly. Yeah, so we've got publisher name, comma, year, comma, pp, period, page range, period. So publisher, Norden, comma, year, changing that period to a comma, pp, and then the page range. So that's good. So the other thing that we missed, and that we don't want to miss, is between I just want to make sure that we know where to put addition. So again, if you're wondering about exactly where to put addition names, another thing we can do, we can just go Command F, and then we can look up how to make sure that we're giving addition. So there's an addition section. So it looks like we do number ed. And I'm pretty sure it's not actually answered here whether we go addition editors. I think that probably the way to go is addition then editor. So we're going to go get out of the italics there. So let me go 2nd ed ed. Second edition edited by all these people. So that's the kind of thing that you're looking for when you're citing an entry from an anthology. Now here's a little trick that you need to learn for doing works cited, and it's a thing called hanging indents. So you remember when we did a block quote, we moved things over by highlighting a paragraph and then sliding it over like so. Now what we're going to do for a hanging indent is you're going to move the paragraph over like so, but you see how that little tab there has a bottom and a top with the little flat bar? Well, you're going to move the arrow 1/2 inch in, and then you're going to take that top bar and slide it backwards. No. Yeah, so you see you can make the top bar and the bottom bar come apart. And then that way what you get is the start of the paragraph, you get the name, but then everything after that bumps over inside the line. So that way you can scan really quickly from name to name. Right? One last trick is in some cases you're going to be citing books that are placed in larger anthologies. So I was wondering to myself if the name of a book or a play, for instance, is going to be in quotation marks or italicized when it's in works cited. Well, that's the sort of thing where that's a good one to ask Google, right? So, for instance, you might ask, citing a play in MLA, citing a play, but we're asking the question in an anthology. I already looked at this link. But, if you have a specific question like this, this has led me to the MLA Style Center. They are reliable, and they show an example of, a play that's within an anthology, and they say anytime you've got an independent work, you should italicize that. So if it was published as its own book before it was put into your textbook, then you should go ahead and leave that italicized. So we are going to now work through this one. An Apology by Plato is a freestanding work, but it's also anthologized. And in this case, it's anthologized in the Lewis Vaughan textbook. So let's work our way through that. So again, the goal is to get all the information in the right order. So yeah, so we go author. Remember, Plato just has one name, right? And then we're going to put in apology and italicize it. And then we're going to go philosophy here and now. We can put in the subtitle. And then we're going to go 3RD ED, right? As we can see right there is a third edition. So now let's get the rest of the info in there. And again, we're going to want to give that the hanging indent. Take it half an inch in, slide that first bar back. And then the other thing that we need to do, as you can see on the Singer essay as well, we're going to go PP. And then I just need to double check the pages.
So 55 is where it ends, and it starts at 47.
And remember, don't do any more work than you need to. So I just noticed that this Philosophy Here and Now book is the Lewis Vaughan book as well. So we're treating this as both an anthology and as a freestanding text, because it kind of wavers between both of those things. Don't worry about that too much. But we have most of the information that we need right there. I'm just going to take out this edited by Lewis Vaughan right here because we're treating it more as a book that he wrote than as an anthology that he edited. There's some tricky questions about how whether we want to treat these books with snippets as well as commentary, as anthologies purely, or as freestanding texts, or as some sort of hybrid. But you know, citing things more than you need to is better than citing things less than you need to. So good. Now we've got Vaughan's paper in there. Let's go ahead and get our other one done. So this is another Plato citation, but this time it's out of the Kahn textbook. So I'm going to make sure that I follow everything on the title page, and also make sure that I get the third edition designation in there.
Three RD.
So that one basically followed the same rules as the other Plato text that we cited. Okay, so moving on. So you might try to use the citation generator. I find them to be more work than they're worth. So in this case, we just want to go back to Purdue OWL and follow the steps, right? So this time around, we're going to go to Works Cited page periodicals. So, the rule that you want to follow. So we're looking at an article in a scholarly journal. So that's what we're looking for. So what we want to do is author, title of article, title of journal. So I know that off the top of my head already. In fact, I can get all of this into view as I type at the same time. This is just about like arranging your screen in a smart way to do your work as efficiently as you can. Okay, so now I have all the information in front of me. So we get the name of the author in, and then period, and then we go title of article. Okay, so we've got the title of the article in there. Let me get that out of the way again. Then we're going to go title of journal. And remember, title of journal is in italics. Then we're going to put a comma. And I got out of italics, and then I put a comma, volume, issue, year, pages. So then we're going to go volume 75, issue 2, and then PP 204 to 12. Right, and we actually go volume 15, number 1. And just make sure that we're matching the style that we see here. So I'm just going vol with no cap there. Part of how we learn how to do our citations is just by learning to mimic what we see in style guides like this. Number 2, comma, year, 2015. And then comma, pages. So good, so we have that one done. So now we just have a couple more. So let's go to this CLR James essay. So this is one of those cases where we're citing something from the internet. There's nothing necessarily wrong with citing internet sources. There's a lot of good philosophy on the internet, just so long as you know where you're looking. So remember, we don't want to start with the first name, so it's James, comma, CLR. And then the name of the essay is Every Cook Can Govern. Oh, and there's a subtitle. So sometimes, we have like an additional title, so we're just going to copy that in. Remember, if we go Command Alt-Shift-V, then we get the same font that we had before. So then we just want to make sure that we're following the rules for an online source. So there's a guide for that on the online Writing Lab site. So, if we're looking at like a page on a website, it's going to be like the name of the author, the name of what they wrote, the name of the website in general. So we are on Marxists.org. Those Marxists like sharing their favorite writings for everybody to access, so we'll just call it the Marxists Internet Archive. So that we're going to put in italics. Make sure I'm getting that name right. Yeah, that's right. Good. And then we're going to put in the entire thing. So it's a name of author, name of what they wrote, name of the website, comma, and then the HTML. So we're going to go Marxists Internet Archive. We're going to get out of the period, and then we're going to put in the entire HTML. And you can get rid of the HTTPS : // You just need to put in that part. And it's okay to like start a whole new line for this long piece of text. And then we're also going to, and that's another thing you have to deal with, is some word processors will automatically hyperlink. When you get automatic stuff like that, if you just go Command Z, that can take you out of that. Good, yeah, so it's HTML, good. So, what we're going to do then is we're just going to put accessed April 10th, 2020. So that's how you cite something from the internet. So our last thing to cite is a film. And in that case, we can just make sure that we're citing it correctly. So we can even just go to Google, right? Cite DVD MLA. And in fact, if we go to other common sources within the Writing Lab, so we can even just go find DVD. All right, so we've got yeah, so films or movies. So it's actually interesting because you can emphasize different things when you do a movie. So I think I actually want to do it in this format, where we emphasize the director. So if we look at the movie, so the movie is What is Democracy? It is directed by Astra Taylor. And then, just want to make sure that we get the title. I think we also need to say that she was the director. Yeah, so Astra Taylor director. Taylor Astra director. Then what do we put? We go publisher, the year, the publisher, comma, the year, period. And then we're done that one. So for this one, we're going to put in the names of our two production houses. I don't know which of those production houses is predominant. Again, it's probably not a bad thing to put in more information than you need to, and I can see on the back that the film itself is 2018. Now it says the DVD packaging is 2019, but I'm going to go 2018 for the original release. I'm also seeing that it says the National Film Board of Canada. Yeah, let's throw one more in there. So there we go. So now we're going to make sure that everything below our works cited title is correctly justified. We want that at 0.5, and we want this at 0. Now everything looks right. Last move, we just want to make sure that all of our text is in black. And I'm going to get rid of that last page just by deleting those lines. So that looks like pretty much a good set of works cited. Now the last thing that we need to do is alphabetize these. Let's see if we have a tool for that. Okay, so that looks like an alphabetized list to me. And moreover, we've got our hanging indent, so we've got our formatting correct. We just had a little bit of, we had an extra page created there. So that's everything that we need to do. We have each claim cited correctly in the main body of the text. We've got our formatting right with our name, and we've got our title centered, and we've got everything that we need for a correctly cited paper. So I hope you found this demonstration helpful as you work through your paper. For a short paper, you probably haven't cited nearly as many things as this, but my main piece of advice is just make sure to be consistent. And if you have any questions about what order to put your information in, the Purdue Online Writing Lab is a fantastic resource. So that's going to wrap it up for today. And as always, if you see any mistakes that I made throughout this video, and it's very possible that I made some, you can let me know. And moreover, if you have any questions or concerns about how to get your citations done correctly and efficiently, don't hesitate to get in touch and ask me. So thanks for listening in, and I hope you found this of use. I'm going to go walk my dog now. Take care, folks. Bye.